Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. This is 4/22 of 2021. And tonight we have a slightly smaller crew than usual because there's a competing contest going on and some of our members have volunteered to work that contest. So as a result, we have a couple of people short this evening, but we still have a good meeting planned for you. Let me start with a few things here. I think everybody pretty much has been on Zoom for long enough to know, but just in case, if you are speaking and trying to watch your timer, you can either watch your timer in the smaller icons, assuming that you're on a PC or a Mac. You probably have smaller icons with everybody, smaller videos of everyone. But there's also a ... in those frames. And then on the ... you can pin, P-I-N, people, and that will put them in the main window for you so that you can make sure that they stay visible. You could also change your view to the gallery view instead of the speaker view so that you could see everybody at one time. That's another alternative to make sure that you can always see your timer if you happen to be speaking. Quick share of the screen. For what it's worth, Dallas is now at level orange, so things are getting a little bit better. We still have got a ways to go before we are at level yellow or green, but at least things are beginning to come down finally. Our website, of course, is dallassocialtoastmasters.com. This is where you will find all of our information and schedule. And of course, if we have special events like Zoom, we've always put those up here as well, just so that you know. The agenda can be found in the third column under the members section. There's a link for current agenda. If you click on the current agenda, you will get this file to come up. Feel free to have a copy of this sitting available on your screen so that you can follow along with us and tell what's going on and who all of the players are tonight. We always try to have this up just a few minutes before the meeting, at least, so that it's available there. With that, I think I have completed what I need to go over with regard to what I will be doing as your Zoom coordinator. Our secondary Zoom coordinator and backup for that is going to be Dagan Newland. If you have trouble, and reach one of the two of us and we'll try to help you. And I try normally to keep most of the mics muted just to keep some of the noise down. So if you happen to be speaking and are on mute, we'll let you know, or perhaps it'll show up as saying you're muted on your screen, just in case. With that, let's go to our Toastmaster for the evening, or actually our invocation and pledge, who is also going to be doing our Toastmaster, and that's going to be John Vessels. John.
Welcome, everybody, to another week of Dallas Social Toastmasters remotely. And I hope everybody is having a great week and doing well, and hope you all have a great weekend. I do want to say it's going to be an out-of-the-world evening. And I'd like to go ahead right now real quick and introduce Mark Sims, our president, to recognize guests and anything else. So, Mr. Sims.
Thank you, John. And we have two guests tonight. Justin Faust, who's been with us a few times before, so welcome back, Justin. And also Marcia Hamilton, who I don't believe that I met before. Thank you for joining us, Marcia. And what we'll do is, for starters, just welcome you to the meeting. I hope you enjoy it. Just take it all in. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll want to get to know you, especially you, Marcia, a little better. Just we'll want to get feedback from both of you on what you thought of the meeting. And then if you had any questions, certainly we'd want to respond to that. And one final note before we go back to John, when you see us waving our hands, it's the best thing we can do in a social distant Zoom environment for applause. We definitely want to give support to this and encouragement to the speakers, but with most everyone muted, it makes it a little more difficult for applause, traditional applause, to be effective. With that, thank you again for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster for the evening, John Vessels.
All right, thank you, Mark. Well, I was coming up with a theme this week, and I just happened to be looking on the internet, and saw that the Navy recently leaked a few photos of UFOs, and the Pentagon has actually come through and said, yes, they are real videos. So they're not faked. This is what came from videos streams done by the Navy, by a battleship, and by some airplanes. And they are true videos of UFOs. Now, the theme tonight is, do you believe in UFOs? Well, in the clearest sense of the word, a UFO is just an unidentified flying object. So you have to believe in that sense. If you look up in the sky, you see something flying around that you can't identify, hey, you've got a UFO. But most people interpret, if they see a UFO, it's some otherworld alien craft that's looking at us, checking us out, and watching us. Now, you may not believe that to be true. A lot of UFO videos and pictures and stuff get debunked. There's a whole group of people that do nothing but love to debunk any kind of observation to prove that it's not real. And that's fine too. I mean, we want to know what the reality is in our society today. It's hard to know what the truth is because everybody has their own truth and they throw it out there. So the skeptics are just as important as the people that present images. Now, I don't know that I believe that a UFO is any kind of alien visitor or if they're in kind of strange spacecraft. Some of the things I've seen are kind of hard to explain and I can't figure out what they could be. Like one of the ones the Navy just released was kind of a pyramidal shaped thing flying over a battleship or a ship. And I can't figure out what that could be. I mean, some things are just observational things and they look maybe from a bad angle or a weird angle and you can't figure, in fact, it could be a plane or anything else, but you just can't see it well enough to know what it is because they haven't got any super sharp. We have what, 8K now? Where are the people videotaping this stuff on 4K or 8K? I mean, my goodness, I can see every pore in every actor's face on a movie now, but you can't get me a clear shot of a UFO. What can I say? They'll have to see it one of these days. Maybe we'll actually get one that's so unique, so perfect that it's like, yeah, that's cool. So I'd like to take a moment now and introduce our duty holders for tonight. And we're going to start with our timer. And our timer is going to be Dagan Newland. And so, Dagan, will you explain the duties of the timer, sir?
Yes, sir. So as timer, I'll be obviously timing different sections of the meeting. And that's going to be the prepared speaker, the table topics, and evaluations. And I will start off with during the timing section, I'll change my screen to gray. Then once they hit the minimum time frame, not sure what the time frame the speaker is, but we'll get to that. So when the speaker hits the minimum time frame, they'll get the green. When they hit the middle time, they'll get the yellow. And when they hit the end time, they'll get red. And for both the speaker and evaluators, they get 30 seconds leeway on either side of the green or red to still qualify. But for table topics, you must hit the green mark, and you have 30 seconds after the red. So again, speakers and evaluators can have 30 seconds leeway on either end, but table topics you must hit the green mark. And I will be, when I'm called upon to give timing requirements, I will do that. And back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dagan. Our next duty holder for this evening is going to be Karen Smith. She has two duties tonight. The first is as grammarian and the second is as counter. So Karen, will you explain both your duties, please?
Surely, Mr. Toastmaster. Good afternoon or good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guest. And Mr. Toastmaster is, as grammarian, is my duty to pay close attention to all speakers listening for language and grammar. So I will take note of any egregious misuses or any exceptional uses of the language. It's also my duty to introduce to you the word of the day. So for today's meeting, the word of the day is fustigate, which means to criticize harshly. An example, I need to use show the word of the day. Fustigate. To criticize harshly. Example of the term fustigate. In the event that you're speaking and you neglect to utilize the word of the day, we will not fustigate you for your attempt. We will welcome you back and have you to speak again on next week. So also, I have a duty as the odd counter. So I will be taking note of any long pauses, pause, and souls, like things of that nature. And I will be tallying them up, and I will let you know at the end of the meeting your ahs and souls and like you knows. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, Karen. And I don't fustigate you at all because you didn't have your sign up quick enough. No, I thought it was great.
I don't know how to put it in my background.
That's cool. All right. Our next duty holder this evening is going to be E-Paul, and he's going to be posture bell. So E-Paul, will you tell us what the posture bell is looking for, sir?
Sure thing, Mr. Toastmaster. So as posture monitor, I will keep track of any positive or negative uses of gestures, and I will also try to take note of anybody in the audience who may be doing anything distracting. I don't have a bell, so I will just keep track of them silently, and I will report back to the general evaluator at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, Paul. And I didn't realize that's why I have myself down as vote counter. So, hey, tonight I will be the vote counter, and the vote counter's job is to count the votes. So different portions of the evening, we're going to have multiple competitors, and really it's just going to be table topics tonight, where I'll have multiple speakers. And at the end of that, if they qualify on time and they qualify by using the word of the day, then you will send a vote to me on a private chat to let me know who you thought did the best job as table topics. Then also we'll vote at the very end of the evening on who we thought was the best of the big three, which is the table topic master, the Toastmaster, and the general evaluator. And you'll hear from them later. So when called upon to vote, send me a private chat. I will not vote, but I will be the tiebreaker, but I will not announce that there is a tie. All right. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hey. Anyway. So the big question, show of hands, who out there believes that a UFO could be maybe an alien civilization and a craft looking on at us? I'm iffy on it. I can't say, some of you did, some of you don't. Who can say for sure? I mean, to be quite honest, we don't know everything in the world or everything in the universe, so it could be something out there. We don't know. But right now, I'm pretty skeptical about it. So if I see one, if I experience one, then maybe I'll change my mind. And that goes to the next question. Has anybody seen a UFO that they couldn't explain, something in the sky that they were just wondering about and couldn't figure it out for themselves? Nope, nobody. Yeah, me either. No exciting stories about that. It would be fun though. As long as I don't get the beam coming down. Oops, the beam coming down to kidnap me. So I'd like to move on to our prepared speaker this evening, and our prepared speaker this evening is going to be Mark Sims. And his evaluator is Karen Lee. And Karen, so you will explain the goals for Mark this evening, please.
Okay. Purpose of Mark's speech is to begin developing a collection of humorous stories and to present a speech that includes humor. And his time is 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Karen. And without further ado, our speaker tonight, Mark Sims, with Not a Laughing Matter, Not a Laughing Matter, Mark Sims.
And as your Zoom coordinator, please remember to keep your timer, Dagan Newland, in view.
Thank you. Humor in a speech or in any interpersonal communication, in a sense, can make or break you. It can bring you some great success. It can bring you some great embarrassment. And it's very important for a speaker to know his or her strengths in this area. In that sense, humor is not always a laughing matter. Again, it's very important to the success of your endeavor. At a Toastmasters meeting, if I or someone tries out a lame joke and it falls flat, we can forgive you. We won't fustigate you. But in a real world presentation, other people might not be quite as forgiving. Now, humor can have great benefits. Political leaders over the years have used humor very effectively to further their careers. In 1944, Franklin Roosevelt was running for re-election, and he was responding to criticisms that he had sent a Navy destroyer to an island to pick up his pet dog that had gotten lost. And in the process, of course, it wasted a lot of government money. His response was humorous as opposed to anger. And if you look at his speech on YouTube, FDR's Fala speech, F-A-L-A, the name of his dog, it's funny to see the mock seriousness, the mock sadness, the raised eyebrows, the facial expressions, where he bemoans the fact that his opponents aren't just criticizing him, but they're criticizing his little dog. It had a great impact, and it actually, in a sense, almost served to trivialize his opponent, who is a very distinguished, very competent opponent. Some years later, in 1984, Ronald Reagan was running for re-election. And after a subpar debate performance, he was asked in the next debate, more or less, was he too old to be president? And he gave a memorable line that he was glad to hear the question because not for 1 second would he take advantage of his opponent's youth and inexperience, his opponent being a man in his mid-50s. And so with loud bipartisan laughter, he coasted on to re-election. Now, not all of us are that comfortable speaking to a nation or using humor that effectively. All the rest of us have to work at it. And I've seen some examples of very counterproductive humor used. One example that comes to mind is a training session I was in almost 30 years ago. And I remember it not for the wisdom of the knowledge I received, but because the trainer slipped in a joke that made light of a recent, very controversial Supreme Court nomination where the candidate had been accused of sexual harassment. He brought that into the discussion. And then to maybe double down on his obtuseness, later on in his presentation, he noted that since there were several women in the audience, he couldn't use the analogy that to add another tool to your toolbox because the women wouldn't understand it. Okay, so he was trying, but he was just a little bit thick-headed. He wasn't helping himself. I also remember listening to a very knowledgeable Civil War lecturer who started off with a joke not in any way germane to this topic. It was long, drawn out, wasn't that funny. And he explained he did that because you're always supposed to start off with a joke. No, not really, not everyone. But not to be outdone, in my own case, many years ago, on the first day of a college finance course, in a large auditorium lecture hall, the instructor asked us all to stand up, introduce ourselves, and then estimate our accounting skills on a 1 through 10 scale, with 10 being the very best. I listened to a room full of people denigrate their skills in this area, and I decided to have some fun, an obvious joke. And when it was my turn, I said, my accounting skills would have to be at least a 10. So I waited for the laughter that I was going to hear, but I had been so dry in my delivery that they thought I was serious. The room went, ooh. One person even shrieked. And I was so embarrassed that instead of clarifying my remarks, saying, hey, this is just a joke, I sat down and stared at the floor for the remainder of the class. So the joke kind of backfired. I think it's important for a speaker to go with his or her own strengths in this area. I have a colleague I work with who has a warm, engaging personality and a nice smile. And he told me of an instance where he was actually able to slip in a worn out joke where he was following up a very boring speaker. And so my friend Logan spoke to the audience and he said he had just flown in from Dallas and boy, were his arms tired. I mean, you talk about how corny can you get, but he had a nice smile, an outgoing personality, and it worked for him. Most of us wouldn't have that type of success. So if you're like me, and maybe humor isn't your best instinct or your best area of expertise, but you do want to use it because of the benefits you can obtain by it, there's a few rules, a few thoughts that you can follow. One is to stay away from something overly controversial or hurtful. The country music singer Sammy Kershaw has a song, Politics, Religion, and Her, which are 3 things you don't talk about with him because they're too controversial. Again, politics, religion, and her. Well, for the rest of us, I would say in a speech and you're trying to make a joke, stay away from for example, the trainer that I talked about and working in some political or some maybe hurtful comment. Keep the joke relatively short with not too elaborate of a punchline, and definitely test it out with some friends that will give you honest feedback. And another thing that you can do is to at times participate in a Toastmasters contest where maybe it's a humorous contest, tall tales competition, and that's a chance for you to work on developing humorous skills that, again, might not be second nature to you. So if you do these things, if you use humor selectively, use it proactively, thoughtfully, and try to keep it clean, keep it funny, then you can maybe enhance your speech. You can connect with an audience early on. You can work off some speech jitters. And above all, you can keep humor funny. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Mr. Timer, did Mark qualify on time?
Did you not hear it? Mark went over.
Okay, thank you. So we don't have a competition tonight because we only have the one speaker. So if there's no reason to vote, but if you want to make comments and let Mark know what you thought he did about this speech, how you thought it went, go ahead and send him a private chat with your comments, and he'd always like to hear them. Just don't fustigate him, but let him know. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dagan. So I left with the last thing of not wanting to be kidnapped by aliens, but there are people out there. Betty and Barney Hill were probably the most famous UFO kidnapped victims that you ever heard of. Way back in 1961, they claimed that they were kidnapped by UFOs, and they were studied with psychiatrists and all kinds of testing and everything. And it was one of the most convincing stories for them of UFO abduction. And people can't still say that it didn't happen because of all their investigation that's going on. They found them to be truthful. And an interesting thing, in 2019, the military have actually developed protocols on how to report, how to record UFO sightings. A lot of times, even standard aircraft, commercial jets and stuff, they're always kind of paranoid about ever saying anything, especially on radio, about seeing a UFO. But could be out there, you never know. But maybe we'll all be safe. Watch the skies. Now I'm going to go over to the next portion of our meeting, which is the table topics portion. And tonight our table topic host is going to be Lee King. So take it away, Lee.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. This evening, our theme is UFOs, and I was giving some thought to how to do table topics. We tried this once before, this style of table topics once before, and I thought that before we transitioned into in-person meetings, we should try this style of table topics once more, and with the theme of UFOs, why not? So I'm going to challenge all of you to do something a little bit different for this evening. Mark, if you could go ahead and enable the screen sharing feature, and perhaps in just a moment, share with us how to share screens so that everybody knows how. That would be great. But what I'm going to do for this evening is have each of you have the opportunity, a few minutes, to go out to Google. I want you to find that perfect UFO or that perfect spacecraft that you would like to go and take to another planet, and think about how would you explain it to the Martians or the Jupiterans or whatever life form on your planet that you chose, one of the 8 planets. Remember, we don't have 9 anymore, we only have 8 planets. How would you explain this, and why would you select the features of your chosen spacecraft? So in other words, think about a planet that you want to go see. What would you have to take on your mission, and how would you explain it? Now, the trick is you don't know if I'm going to call you or not, so you have to be prepared. But first, Mark Schroeder, will you please share with all of us how to share a screen?
Certainly. So I can't actually visually show you because Zoom prevents you from seeing what I do within Zoom. However, for most of us on the PC or the Mac, you'll find that there's a share screen button down approximately bottom dead center of your screen. Mine is green. On the share screen button, if I click it, I have a choice of sharing screens or individual apps. Typically, the full screen is the first one that is listed. We'll have a blue rectangle around it. So if you were to just go to screen and then click share, that would share your entire screen. Now, of course, be careful. You have to remember we're being recorded. So make sure that whatever is going to be visible is something that you want to be recorded or are okay with being recorded. I also happen to have 2 monitors. Will have a choice of selecting screen 1 or screen 2. So I have a choice of selecting either of the 2 monitors. We should not probably need the other 2 buttons that are down. There's an optimize for video and share sound. Unless you really happen to have a sound clip or a video clip that you want to show, you will not need those. So share screen down at the bottom, select your screen or the app in particular and click share, and that should share. That will bring up an icon up near the top to be able to stop the share that will show in red. If you're on an iPad or something like that, your mileage may vary. It's a little bit different, but it should be very similar. Lee?
All right, perfect. Keep in mind, table topics is 1 to 2 minutes. You do have to use the word of the day as well. But for now, take about 4 minutes to go find your spacecraft. One minute remains. All right, everybody go ahead and turn on your cameras and we will get started. Our first speaker for this evening will be V. Paul.
Excellent table topics, Lee. Really appreciate it. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I think if I were to be in a ship and were to have made contact with an extraterrestrial species, I would need to have a good opener if I'm able to communicate at all, so as to not be fustigated by this newfound group of people. So what I would say is, in terms of explaining why I chose this, number one, I am a planner. I want to make sure that I'm ready for any kind of situation that we may run into. And at this point, who knows how long we've been traveling or if we have any viable planet to live on. So this is why I chose somewhat of a complicated and large type of ship that I think would be sustainable for humans for a long period of time. I would also want something that showcases our technology and our development as a species. So I'd imagine in this ship, there's some type of display of our agriculture, our technology, things that we have developed and accumulated as a species over the last couple thousand years. And lastly, I would want it to be non-threatening. I don't really see any weapons on here. I think there probably could be somewhere, but at first glance, it kind of just looks like a cool, futuristic looking transportation vehicle. And that would be a big point of mine, is to make sure that we're giving off the sense that we're here out of curiosity and not as a threat and not to conquer. So those are kind of my main objectives in terms of what I would want to get across regarding my ship. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mark Schroeder.
Okay, 1 second as I move stuff around. I picked something that everyone recognizes as a UFO. And I picked it, quite frankly, because these look like a couple of fun people. Okay, I suspect if I really had to look at this, these are probably, I don't know what, 3'6", 4'2", something. I'm 6'6". Can you imagine me in this thing? I'm going to be standing in this thing and looking out those portholes near the top is probably what's going to happen. But this was nonetheless one of the first ones that I found that I thought looked interesting and definitely said UFO, because if you're gonna want to be a UFO, you got to look the part. I will go ahead and show you a couple others that I found. That would be a pretty nice one too. You want one that's a little more spacious? Think the one from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Then one that will sit on the top of that plateau up there, give you a little bit more space. I think I could deal with that one too. And interestingly enough, the people that came out of that one were probably still about 3'6" or 4'2". So same form factor for all practical purposes. That was too plain. That was that one. Oh, and I want weapons on mine. Heck with you people that don't want weapons. It's a freaking spaceship. I want freaking laser beams and transporters and everything else. If I'm going to have technology, I'm going to have good technology and I'm going to use it. All right, everybody get ready with your best Slim Whitman yodel. Yahoo! Back to you.
Mark Schroeder. Our next contestant for this evening, Karen Smith.
Karen, you're on mute.
I'm not very good with the sharing, but I'm trying to share. Can you all see that?
Not quite yet. It's coming now. There we go.
There you go.
In the event that I was taken up, well, by the aliens, or the aliens that want to engage with the aliens and communicate with them and let them know that I would like them to share, I guess okay, in the event that I was taken up by the aliens, I would like to show them this solar probe. The solar probe would take the aliens and myself close to the sun. Now, many of you would probably fustigate me for having the desire to get closer to the sun, but this inanimate object would take you close to the sun without being burned. So in the event that I travel close to the sun with these aliens, we would have no problems with burning. The fact that I already have a nice crisp shade of brown still does not decrease my desire to travel closer to the sun. I have missed the sunshine and the beaches, and I would like to travel closer to the sun. So this is why I have chosen this space object. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Karen Smith. Our next table topic speaker for this evening will be Megan. Mark, can you time
Yeah,
Dagan?
1 second, I gotta get my timer going.
Oh, I can do my timer. Just time. You don't have to worry about backgrounds.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm gonna start my timer too. So
I got it.
okay, so mine, I just set mine as a background instead of sharing the screen. Thought just make it simpler for me. As you can see, it's the Millennium Falcon. So I think the Millennium Falcon is considered one of the fastest ships out there. So based on this case, who we meet, they could be they could fumigate us. So I just wanted to be able to be in a fast ship for a fast getaway. Plus, there's even if they do in case get on board somehow, there's lots of secret compartments throughout the Millennium Falcon that people can hide in and that can never be found too. So this is one of the best ships out there to be able to meet another species out there. And of course, just looking at it, you don't really see weapons on it like EPAWS did, but it does have weapons. So just in case these people that we meet are hostile and want to fustigate us, we'll be able to fight back. Or if they have better firepower than me, I'll be able to be on one of the fastest ships out there and be able to hijack it out there and run away from them. So this is my ship, the Millennium Falcon. Back to you, Tabletop Master.
Thank you, Dagan Newland. We have one remaining guest, Justin Foss. Justin, would you like to participate in table topics this evening?
Yes, sure.
All right.
Yes, I can.
Show us what you got.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Yes, I would like to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a photo?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I had some plumbing
Oh.
issues and something needs to be done. So I gotta go get a photo with the UFO.
Do you have one ready or?
Let me just Google it.
Tell you what, why don't I give you a question then?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So that's all right, no problem. Give you a question instead. And that question would be, what are your thoughts on our advancements in science when we know more about outer space and the planets of outer space than we do about the living world under our seas here on Earth?
Yeah, I mean, as we can see, technology has definitely been advancing throughout the years. We have gained a vast knowledge of everything in the sky, like what he said. We know more about I think the moon, the surface of the moon, than the bottom of the ocean. So that might give credence to believe that, I don't know, extraterrestrial aliens are real, but I think advancement in technologies just advance slowly, gradually, and build up slowly and gradually. Like we went from like flip phones to the first iPhone and to, now phone can do about everything a computer can do. So I don't currently believe in aliens and have contacted us, but I leave myself open for evidence.
Thank you. I've always found that amazing that we actually know more about the moon and far off planets than we do about what's at the bottom of our own ocean. That always has blown my mind. With that, let me have a timers report, please.
Everybody qualified on time.
Great. And could I have a grammarian's report, please?
The grammarian report. Let's see, Yi Paul used cool futuristic transportation. That was a very catchy little term that you utilized.
Oh, just the word of the day. Who used
Just the word of the day,
day?
fustigate? Oh, I'm sorry. For
That's okay.
fustigate, Justin did not utilize fustigate. And Mark Schroeder did not utilize fustigate. Everyone else utilized fustigate.
Okay. So please send your votes for the better of the two, or person you felt that best with table topics, which would be V. Paul and Dagan, I believe. Oh, and Karen Smith. So V. Paul, Karen Smith, and Dagan. So please vote for the person that you felt did the best job with table topics. And I'll now turn the meeting over to our general evaluator. General evaluator.
Yes. Just real quickly, by the way, vote counter is John Vessel, so send those votes to John.
Oh, okay. Private message, John.
All right, so general evaluator, that's going to be me, which means my job this evening is to do a general evaluation of the meeting, call on all of our duty holders, and call on first our evaluator for our speaker. So we'll go and start doing all of that. We've only had one speech tonight. Our speaker, of course, was Mark Sims. Mark's evaluator is Karen Lee this evening. Karen, please give your evaluation of how you thought Mark's speech turned out tonight and how his performance was.
Thank you. I'm going to give 3 different techniques that I thought that Mark excelled at, and then a couple of things that I thought that he could work on, and one thing that I thought he did exceptionally well on. Mark gave us several stories in his speech. He also incorporated the word of the day in his speech. He gave us good examples of how other people used humor in speaking. And he gave us a couple of things that he may want to work on are to watch your time, because you did go overtime. And I would tell more personal stories using humor. And I didn't hear you vary your vocal variety during your speaking. The guidelines that you gave us for using humor, such as practicing and not to go out and cut down people during speaking, and also to practice, say, during contests like humorous speaking or the tall tales contest, and to practice with other people were good guidelines to help us to learn what we needed to do to practice increasing our humor skills. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Oops, on mute. Thank you so much, Karen. All right. One speaker, one evaluator. I need to call on a timers report. Did Karen qualify on time?
Yes, she just hit the 2-minute mark when she handed it over to you, so she qualified.
Perfect. Good timing. Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you, Dagan. All right, so that takes care of our speech evaluations. I'm going to go ahead and do the minor duty holders reports at this time. First, grammarian Karen Smith, tell us everything that you heard that was good or bad English and grammar tonight.
So tonight we have a nice sized group of very experienced speakers with us. So we had very few things to report this evening. Our speaker, Mr. Mark Sims, that spoke about not a laughing matter, had very familiar terms, I thought. I'm sorry, that's another for me. So that's the third for me this evening. So he had terms such as double down and added the notch to the tool belt, thick-headed, and not to be outdone. Those terms to me made the speech very familiar because those are familiar terms that we often hear in speeches or often hear just talking generalized talking. And also he utilized terms that brought life to his speech. The word shrieked, he shrieked when he spoke about person shrieking in the audience. And he also did a warm and engaging. The speaker was warm and engaging. He spoke about those two terms, which brought life to his speech. So the only ahs and ums I heard this afternoon was myself, of course. Myself, I had 3 or 4 uhs, and our guest, Mr. Justin, he had 3 ums, 2 so's, and 2 you knows. And that is my report for the afternoon.
Okay.
Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. All right, that's grammarian and the yaw counter. Next is going to be our posture monitor. Posture monitor is Paul. What did you notice with regard to with regard to posture and gestures tonight?
Thank you, Mark. So I will go down the list. I think I got everybody. So John, I noticed that you were pretty much still during all the times where you were talking. I did notice sometimes I think you're in a swivel chair, if I'm correct. And you kind of do this a little bit sometimes. That's the only thing I really noticed. Everything else was fine. Mark Sims, I kind of messaged you partly what I was going to say, but both the way you speak and your hand gestures, I think are very smooth and calming. That's something that I've noticed about your speaking across many different sessions that we've had. You have great eye contact even while you're looking at your notes. You do a good job transitioning back to looking at the audience. You have facial expressions that reflect the mood of the story you're trying to tell, which I think helps engage the audience. You could sit a little bit further back from the camera. I think you had a lot of good hand gestures that I barely caught on the bottom of the camera. But yeah, I think you actually do a pretty good job leaning towards and away from the camera, which I think is something that is a benefit on Zoom that we might not actually get in person. So good job with that. Lee, I could tell you were very excited about the table topics today. You had a constant smile on your face, which I think is something I don't see from you very often. You even did like a little lift off out of your chair when you were telling us to go look up our UFOs. And you had some good facial expressions. You lifted your eyebrow when you were talking. You had some good vocal variety. That's not really posture, but that's what I noticed. Karen Lee, I think you only spoke during the evaluator portion, so I just have some notes about that. I know you have some notes that you look at. You could try to maybe transition that motion a little bit smoother so that it's not as abrupt. I think that would be a little bit less distracting to the audience, but otherwise, I think you did a good job. Mark Schroeder, again, always good use of facial expressions, and you continue to do the open palms, which I think is comforting for the audience. Dagan, you were also pretty excited about your Millennium Falcon. I liked how you used your hand gestures. I did notice you were a little bit fidgety at the beginning of your talk. You kind of were just, I just noticed little small movements of your entire body, but that kind of went away as you got further into your talk. Justin, I think you did a great job. You have a very calming demeanor. You don't fidget, even though I don't know if you're nervous or not, but I couldn't really tell if you were. You are pretty stoic in your demeanor, so maybe you could try to incorporate some more expressions, facial expressions, some more movement. I think that'll just, I think you were kind of caught off guard as well. So nothing on you, but just as a piece of advice. And then I think lastly, Karen Smith, I think you did a really good job transitioning, again, kind of like Mark. You read your notes and we can tell, but it's smooth in the way you do it. And you also smile a lot. Sometimes it's a nervous smile, but other times you can tell that you're actually genuinely excited about what you're talking about. So I think those are all great things. And that is all I have for today. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you so much. Let's see, that completes our duty holders reports. So that means that I get to move to my general meeting evaluation as a whole. I don't have a whole lot to mention, but I will go through a few things at least. John, first of all, the topic of UFOs I thought was an interesting topic and well done, especially with the graphic that you had. But the only thing you really could have done differently was have the beam directly on you and then put a spotlight over your head so that it looked like it was really shining down on you perfectly. That would have been just, you know, primo. Let's see. Mark Sims, I like the fact that as you were announcing your early parts of the duties as just introducing the meeting and introducing our guests, you talked about using the use of hands, which as Zoom coordinator I did not mention, and we did have a couple of new guests, so that's kind of important. We did have 2 guests. I liked having guests. You acknowledged the guests. We have 2 of them. We only have 1 right now. I was expecting maybe another one to come in. We had one lady who was expecting to run over in a previous meeting and was hoping to make it, and she obviously has not made it. So she's a previous member. For anybody who remembers Merritt Conway, she was considering coming back. She suddenly has got Thursdays open again. We had 1 speaker. I love it when we have more than 1 speaker, but tonight, to be honest, with some people away, I thought we still did really well with one speaker, so no complaints there. A comment just in general from Mark Sims. Mark has always had a very strong historical perspective on a lot of things because he just flat has a lot of interest in history, specifically, I think more than anything else, American history. I don't know if his tastes go beyond that and how much, but it is amazing how he can go back into history without having to talk about history, because he can find almost anything that he needs to talk about in terms of a topic from history, which I think is just kind of phenomenal. I really like that. Going on to Lee, let's see, with regard to the topic that you picked, a very different way to do things. And because we are on Zoom and can pull up pictures, I thought that was appropriate, interesting, gives everybody something to do. If there were any change that I might make, the question is whether or not 4 minutes was too long, because we had 4 minutes of dead air almost. All of the people here were probably busy looking for stuff. I certainly know I was. I don't know if all of the people watching the recording would feel the same way. So maybe I don't know what the right thing to do. I don't necessarily want to play a Jeopardy theme, but we need something to cover the dead air perhaps. Karen Smith, interesting choice of the graphic. And I also noticed, for anybody who goes and rewatches the video, don't forget to buy that Toto NeoRest 700H dual flush toilet that was up, the ad for which was up on the upper right-hand corner. Sorry, Karen, there's nothing you can do about that. It was just there and they were rotating through and refreshing, but it caught my eye. A touch distracting, but not horrible. Compared to the rest of the graphics, it was fine. You were 100% correct on the word of the day and who said it and who didn't. You may have jumped the gun a little bit when you were asked for word of the day with some of the other information, but you were 100% correct on who did and did not use the word of the day. And when you did do the rest of your report, the observations that you had, I thought were very, very good. They were on point. The word choices that you pointed out, I thought were particularly important, and the fact that you said that they brought life to people's speeches or to what they were saying. Yeah, very, very, very good. Positive feedback for everybody. Love it. Karen Lee. Let's see. Can I read this? Oh, also, it's the same sort of thing. You gave a lot of specifics about the speech that Mark gave and what he did to promote good practices and how to practice learning how to give comedy. So I thought that was good. E. Paul, I love the way you said Mark and then had to go back with Mark Sims. Trust me, I'm working on this. I'm trying to get Mark Haddad back. We had a Mark Dupler. I'm still trying to take the club over with Marks again. I really am. We were in the majority at one point with over 51% of the club at one meeting being Marks. I'm going to get there again. I promise you, even if I have to not talk to a few guests in order to do it. Sorry, Justin. Anyway, here we go. I also thought that you had just a very engaging manner with the way that you gave your report. It was very interesting to listen. It was just flat a joy to listen to is the only way to describe it. And it's the engaging, it's the personality that you have behind it, all the smiles and eye contact. It's just really, really good. That's going to conclude my report for the general evaluation of the meeting. I have one other duty tonight, which is to call for a vote for the best of the big three. The best of the big three, of course, being our Toastmaster, our Table Topics Master, and our General Evaluator. So Toastmaster, John Vessels. Table Topic Master, Lee King. Or General Evaluator, Mark Schroeder. Please cast a vote for one of those. And of course, your votes go to John Vessels. Give everybody just one moment to do that. Hint, hint, you're going to be up next, Mark Sims. All right, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and putting up with us one more time on Zoom as we work our way toward having regular meetings again, hopefully in the fairly near future, at least compared to where we started last year, fairly near future. With that, I'll go ahead and give this back to Mark Sims. This concludes the regular meeting, unless, actually, John, do you have anything that you want to finish as Toastmaster, or are you done? Any final words?
No, I'm good.
Okay, with that, then we'll go to the business portion of our meeting. Mark Sims.
Thank you. And I was going to try and share something with you. Can everyone see that? That's my spaceship, because I wanted a unique spaceship. I didn't really want to intimidate the other worlds because, hey, they may be a little insecure meeting strangers. Wanted to show them something really classy. Okay, so it may be a couple of years old, not the newest model, but hey, quality stands the test of time. So let me get rid of that.
And Mark, if
Yes.
you approached a young child today, maybe 5, 6 years old, they might actually think that is a spaceship.
Well, very possibly. So just keep that in mind in case you ever encounter an aliens that would really impress them. I would like to first of all welcome Justin again, and thank you for participating in the meeting. And Justin, we've got to know you some before, but if there's anything else you want to share with us or any other impressions of the meeting that you had, please share them with us.
Yeah, it's my first time actually being a participant, so I really appreciated that. Now the meetings, I understand that the format now, the structure. I appreciate you guys inviting me in. And yeah, I'm really thinking about being a member. I will speak more to Mark about that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very excited to hear that you might become a member. So please do let us know how we can help you on that. And at the conclusion of this meeting. What we want to do also is to have a brief officers meeting. There's just a couple of items on the agenda we can go over. We can keep it relatively short. And so I'll defer any officers' reports until that time. And I'm trying to think, we obviously did not have a vote on the best speaker or best evaluator, although I'm not going to win best speaker, but I would like to hear from John Vessels on the reports of the winners for the best table topics and the best of the big three.
All right. Thank you, sir. Since we only had the 2 contests, table topics and big three, we'll go with our table topics tonight, and that goes to E. Paul. Hey. I like your spaceship. That's cool.
That was good.
And best of the
Spaceship.
big, huh?
I said that was a good spaceship.
Yeah, it was. Looked nice and roomy. It had like yeah, that works. I would too. I don't want to be cramped. Let's get a good one. And our best of the big three tonight is Lee King. Back to you, sir.
Thank you. And let's see. With the officers' business deferred to the officers' meeting. Before I wind it up, though, I just saw Mark Schroeder getting my attention. Mark.
Not from me, but one from Rob Giles. Rob requested that I mention in this forum that elections will be coming up soon. So we need to start considering the process of election and who's interested in being an officer for the next term.
Yes, he's absolutely right on that. Okay. And at this point, we've heard the winners. If there's nothing else, again, we have meet here just a minute or so after we wind this up. And I would like to thank all of you for attending tonight and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Ending the recording
I'll take care.
in 3, 2,